Now, the farmers' fury isn't going anywhere as the National Farmers Union have organised a rally to take place in London later this month.
It's after the autumn budget included changes to inheritance tax for farms worth more than £1 million.
Well, let's talk to the Countryland and Business Association, which represents 28,000 farms. Their president is Victoria Vivian and joins us now. Victoria, it's great to see you. What is going on with this policy, first and foremost, do you think? Are they trying to close a loophole? Have they completely misunderstood how farming works in the UK with family farms?
Well, it's both those things, really, isn't it? This is not a tax loophole. This is a tax relief. This is a business tax relief. I think the first mistake is that they've conflated business asset with personal wealth, and they've gone after that. But the whole budget was started from the principle of taxing business and taxing business assets, and it's undermined the hard work. It's hard to express the despondency I hear around me.
What's your response to Steve Reed, Environment Secretary, writing in The Telegraph today, saying he's sick and tired of seeing our public services crumble while the rich and wealthy buy up huge estates, robbing young farmers of their dreams just to avoid paying their taxes? He says this is a scandal. And he also goes on to say it's not the very rich it's only the very rich estates that are going to be affected by this, not the small family farms like the media is suggesting. What do you have to say about that?
Well, it's rot. It's absolute rot from top to bottom. There's almost no statistical proof of this large-scale purchasing of land to conceal wealth. And were it to be happening, the Treasury has it within its power to close that loophole. They could increase the active farmer status, for example, that you would need to claim the relief. Small farms, it would be a very small farm indeed if it was less than £1 million in value. Farmland is at about averaging £10,000 an acre, so that's a 100-acre farm. So this is not going to it's not going to punish the people he clearly wants to punish, nor is it going to protect the family farms, which are obviously going to be far bigger than 100 acres.
We were talking yesterday to the Chief Secretary to the Treasury, who was saying, well, it is all misleading because there's the £1 million limit, but then if it's being passed from family to family, there'd be an extra £1 million on top. And look, if you did have a small inheritance tax bill, there are excellent insurance schemes to cover that out there, he says.
Did he? Well, I'm going to ashamedly admit on live television that I'm 62. It's a bit late for me to start paying into a life insurance project. You'd have to start very early for that to be worthwhile. I don't know where they're getting figures for this extra £1 million of relief. They have a Ladybird book of farming in their minds, which has, a family which has a spouse and a primary farm owner who are going to conflate their income tax allowance, and that will help with this bill. Of course, that presumes that the farm and the assets are all being passed to one person. It's really, I think it's deliberately muddying the water. This is a problem for farming as an investment for the food security of this nation. Excuse me, not just about people.
Victoria, you represent 28,000 farms in this country, don't you? Describe to us the sense of feeling about this.
Well, in the run-up to the to the budget, obviously we had assurances that agricultural property relief, which is a necessary tax relief for the investment in the food security of the future, was not going to be touched. We got wind of some of these changes. Leaks started to come out about capping and about small farms. But I've been inundated in the run-up to the budget, let alone after the budget, by really, really desperately concerned members. I mean, what are we going to do, Victoria? How are we going to manage this? We're going to lose the farm. I think the important thing for everybody to understand is these are complex 21st century businesses. You can't just change track. People have invested, they've worked, they've borrowed money to invest in these businesses. And that hard work, that risk is now in jeopardy.
If this all stays in place, are we going to see a situation where effectively over the next, 10 or 15, 20 years, actually all family small farms are basically going to have to be sold to big business?
And that's the problem, isn't it? If you're, depending on where you set a small farm, but a family farm, if your only asset is your land and you have to pay a £2 million tax bill, you have to sell land. So inevitably, the businesses themselves become less and less viable the smaller they get. And there'll come a point also where the investment in time and energy and the well-being of your entire family seems no longer to be worthwhile, and people will walk away.
OK, Victoria Vivian from the Country Land and Business Association. Really good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. I mean, perfectly put, actually. And it's you've
really
got
good to talk to her.
You've got to talk to the real people who are at the sharp end of this to find out what is actually going on. It seems like, on this issue at least, the government doesn't seem to have done that.
No, and actually, I think it was Ed Balls has questioned whether the Treasury have even researched this thoroughly and thought through the implications of all of this, saying that he thinks they're going to have to change their mind. They haven't thought about the implications of what this will mean. And the NFU, the National Farming Union, saying number of farms affected is double what the Treasury has predicted. So could they have a point? Let us know what you think. David's been in touch. He's a farmer. He says, let's put this into perspective. As a farmer, we watch every penny. This is over the picture of Steve Reed wearing his £400 wellies. We spend a lot of time in Wellington, which come with the steel toe caps. Therefore, I go for Dunlop wellies. Cost me about 90 quid. Labour are taking the mickey, for want of the word. How many working farmers do you think you'd see wearing £400 Wellingtons? It's disgraceful.
Yeah, none. Right, we've got the sport for you with Aidan in a couple of minutes.
What do you make of Elon Musk's comments?
Well, I mean, look, I don't know why. If you take out who it's saying it, I don't know if many people would disagree. He says, leave the farmers alone. We owe farmers immense gratitude for making the food on our tables, which I think people should and do. I think a lot of it has been written in the last couple of days that farming is an extremely hard job, particularly in the current climate of taxes and regulations and the cost of it and trying to compete with, cheap food coming from abroad. So, but of course, the reaction on X itself has just been, oh, he should stay out of our country, he should stop interfering.
Yeah, but come on, I mean, there's a fair point in that. I mean, as you say, if you look at the crux of what he says, it makes an awful lot of sense.
Yeah.
You do wonder why he's delving into UK politics. He's not a UK citizen.
He isn't, but I think there's also... I mean, he's allowed an opinion.
Yeah.
As is anyone, and one can ignore that opinion. We don't have to listen to it. We don't have to go mad about it. He does have an actual personal interest, from my understanding, in food because his brother's business is all about food and financing it and, providing it, making it in America. So he's allowed an opinion, and I think there's a sort of, if you look at the reaction, it can sometimes be with someone like him, it's like people just really, really dislike someone who, at the end of the day, has been extremely successful from nothing. And maybe actually we should listen to people like that with immense business experience. But of course, the government has made a real point of not inviting him to their investment summit. I mean, it's just a bit strange. No one's saying that he would have come particularly, but...
No, he has got lots of money to invest, though.
Exactly. This idea that you almost on principle don't want someone like that giving input is a bit strange, particularly when you look at the people who they do have giving input. I mean, there's another story in the Telegraph about our Environment Secretary wearing £400 wellies, gifted to him, of course, by, once again, Labour donor Lord Ali.
Do you think we'll see the government U-turn on this? And if they don't U-turn, change the thresholds? Because it is a bit like winter fuel allowance, isn't it, where the threshold just seems so low?
I think with winter fuel allowance, I said from day one they're not going to U-turn because it was such an early big call that to have U-turned on that would have made Rachel Reeves look pretty weak, especially ahead of the budget. But I think on this, there is going to be so much pressure because the point is they have designed this policy with what sounds like very expensive farms in mind. And Steve Reed has got an article today saying, look, you know, don't worry, farmers, the family farms aren't being affected. It's these really rich people who've been buying up farms and almost pricing you out for the tax breaks. But the truth is, the thresholds they've set do very much affect family farms.
Well, except, and I'm just trying to put the other side before people start having a go at me, because we spoke to Darren Jones yesterday, Chief Secretary to the Treasury, who was saying, you know, there's £1 million limit, and then if you are actually a child of the farmer, then that would increase to 2 million because of the natural inheritance tax thresholds on that. So he said you'd be looking at in excess of 2 million before it even kicked in.
Absolutely, but again, that's the sort of thing that sounds great for him to say, and a lot of voters will absolutely say, "Oh, 2 million sounds like a lot." When you actually look at working farms, 2 million is not that much, and it's certainly these aren't people who are walking around in £400 willies, for example. These are people who are working every day, and in quite and you know, having a very tough time of it. So I think the concern is that the threshold has been set too low. There's already a proposal to at least raise it to 5 million, because otherwise you risk what happens in France, which is they have a tax system which basically incentivises estates to be broken up.
Yeah.
And you sort of see it doesn't take a few years, it takes a few decades, but that is what actually happens. Big estates, which include obviously land and arable land, just get smaller and smaller and smaller, in which the actual country does not benefit because you don't have then these producers of food.
It'd be an interesting attack point, won't it, for, and let's be honest, Kemi Badenoch, when she's crowned Tory party leader. I'd be astounded if she didn't win at this stage.
Well, I'll be there. I'll let you know if there's any immediate surprise.
See, I wouldn't be too confident. I don't think you can predict the Tories. I don't think you can. I think we've seen it before. We'll see it again. We'll have to see it at 11 o'clock this morning.
What do you think?
I think it will be her. I think she has been a front runner with the membership. I think last night there seemed to have been some reports early coming out saying that the gap between the two is quite large, which to me suggests it's her. I think if people were saying it's a very, very close result, then yes, I would say, well, maybe Robert Jenrick somehow made it. But we will see. Not long to wait now.
Yeah, just a few hours to go. And when will we see a shadow cabinet be formed? Do you think it would be quite quick, or do you think it could take a few days?
Oh, you'd hope so. I mean, they've had so long for the leadership contest. You'd think they would have figured all of that out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's serious. It's a serious point because we've already got a front page today saying the Tories are ahead in the polls, and I think there'll be a lot of Tories sort of chomping at the bit, saying, right, we need to get organised and actually start holding the government to account.
Yeah.
It's going to be an interesting couple of days on the opposition benches. That's for sure. Anna, we'll see you later on. Thank you very much indeed.